All right, I think we'll get started as people start trickling in. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to our first session of the year for Social Media Breakfast, Mankato. My name is Chan, and it's a pleasure to have everyone here. And I hope everyone's having a positive start to 2021. As customary, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to kind of just, explain to everyone what Social Media Breakfast is all about. This is basically a monthly meetup where we learn from each other through having expert speakers, panelists, talk about various areas of marketing with a focus on digital marketing and social media. And so all this would not be possible without, the generous support of our sponsors. So we'd like to acknowledge and thank SBDC for their support of this opportunity. Minnesota State Mankato, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Auto Media Group, and Region 9 Development Commission. It's a pleasure this morning to introduce our speaker. Our speaker today is Brian Williams, and he's a digital manager at Town Square Media. In addition to Brian, today we have Nicole from Town Square, as well as Ben. Brian has been in the world of digital marketing for some time now, primarily focusing on the areas of digital marketing, advertising, and really programmatic pieces to marketing. Brian closely works with, developing and tailoring data-driven solutions with a focus on small business. So this morning, he'll be presenting on, some best practices, things that small businesses should keep an eye out for in terms of being better able to target their customer base. So with that, it's a pleasure again to have Brian and the team at Town Square, and I will pass it on to you, Brian.
Excellent. Thank you. Good morning, Chan, and good morning to everybody else that's on the call. I will go ahead and take control of the screen here. Give me one moment. Let me know when you've got mine up. We good, Chan? Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
We're good.
I'd like this to be kind of, fairly informal. If there's questions, things that people want to jump in with, feedback, anything like that as we go, by all means, having a discussion about this, I think is really, really quite valuable rather than listen to me, put on a lecture for a little bit. I did try and keep it short and sweet just to kind of really get to some of the main points and main topics. And, my goal, to what Chan said in the introduction is give maybe just a quick crash course into digital marketing. It's an extremely broad term, and I'm sure you probably get asked as marketers or business owners quite often, what do you do for digital? And it's probably a question you get asked. It's an extremely broad term, especially in my world. That can mean a lot of things. So I thought, well, let's kind of cover some of the basics, and then we can talk a little bit more in depth on some of the the targeting and data and things like that that can help you as a marketer, a business owner, to kind of figure out maybe some next steps or best practices for you specifically. So why don't I just kind of jump in? Like I said, if people have any questions or things they want to jump in with, I'm all ears. Feel free to either unmute yourself or put it in chat, and I think Chan will kind of monitor that as we go. Just not to bore you with Town Square Media or myself, but just to give you a little background. Town Square Media, we are a digital website and radio marketing company. We're in over 67 markets. In 67 markets with over 300 radio stations as far as the radio side of our business go. But we have the digital arms of our company, which specialize in programmatic, digital targeting, website creation, SEO. It's a really, like I said, the digital is a very broad kind of spectrum, and we cover all those pieces. So just a little quick background on us. Unlike most digital companies, our digital support system is in-house. Campaigns are bought by our team and run directly through us. There's a lot of companies that that have the capabilities that we do. There's a lot of digital companies out there, but not always transparent on how they're executing it when you partner with them on something. So that's what makes us a little bit different there, which really means that there's less middlemen between you, more of your marketing dollars to go towards your campaign. We have over 75,000 customers nationwide using our digital strategies and products and radio throughout the year. And then what we do that I think kind of sets us apart is we meet with customers with the intent to create custom plans and that are best suited for the needs and goals of the client, rather than just coming to you and saying, here's a plan, you want to sign and run with us or not. That's not how we work. Whether it's myself, Nicole, or Ben, who are also on this call, we meet with customers. We really want to dive into the nuts and bolts of what you're doing and then come up with a custom plan. And this kind of leads into the other stuff that I'm going to talk about as far as customization, because there's really so many things you can do. And I think that's got to be really overwhelming. I know for me, as somebody who has to try and learn all of it, it's overwhelming. So as someone who's in a marketing position or a business owner position, to try and do all the day-to-day things that you have to do in those positions already, and then try to be some sort of expert in traditional or digital marketing is really, I don't know how people could balance those two. So quick intro about myself. I've been in the marketing industry for about 15 years. The last 6 years, I've been really diving into the digital space, both with an advertising agency that I worked with, but then also Town Square Media as their Ignite Digital Advertising Manager. And myself, Nicole, and Ben, we kind of represent the Rochester market, but I know we're all kind of stationed in different places, which is kind of one of the interesting parts about digital in general. There's no there's no walls that keep us from running campaigns anywhere. So I work with clients all across the country and as well as Town Square Media, even though we're based, in my house like everybody else is at this point. So just a quick slide here on all the kind of different things that we do. I'm going to dive further into the digital piece and kind of give you a little bit more background there on kind of what I look at, things that I see, but really, main point of this slide is having a plan, a marketing plan that's got a really diverse way of reaching people is what's important, whether it's a combination of radio, digital, video, and also making sure that your online presence is buttoned up, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I like to start with the consumer funnel as far as marketing goes. You guys maybe have seen this, some variation of it. It's certainly not unique to me or us, but I like to show it as a visual because I think it's important. I think one thing that we kind of get stuck in is maybe you've been doing some advertising and you've been doing the same thing, which is perfectly fine. Consistency is definitely key, consistency and frequency, but something that digital allows that maybe other more traditional forms of marketing don't allow you to do is to really hit those different stages in the consumer buying process. So you've got the top of the funnel, which is people that obviously they're just out there living their daily lives. They don't necessarily need your product or service right now, but it's important to brand to them because ultimately when they need, whether it be some sort of repair service or a new pair of shoes or a car, or whatever it is, that when they get to that point where they need to make that buying decision, that you're already top of mind for them. And I'll get into why, because obviously, I think consumer habits are to start searching. So we can target people with very broad awareness campaigns when it comes to digital. I won't get into the weeds because there's a lot of weeds you can get into digitally on how we can go about doing that. But it's important to have then a presence in the middle, which digital can do as well, that is tougher for more traditional media. And same with the bottom of the funnel, the conversion piece of it is we can use data that we as a company or other digital marketers will have at their disposal to target people based on their online behavior, their economic status, their geographics, their behaviors. Just as a kind of for instance, each of us, as we use our devices on a daily basis, whether it's our work computers, personal computers, tablets, laptops, mobile devices, we all use a ton of them. All that activity is really, and I don't mean to sound this big brother, but it kind of is a lot of that activity is being collected by data companies, through use of cookies and other means to really start putting each of us into different buckets. They put us into buckets based on either public information they can find out about us, where you live, how much your home purchase was, you got to register your car, what kind of car you own, all that different stuff. There's companies that go out and collect all that data, but then there's also data collection of, as I'm surfing around online on my phone, I'm reading articles about, I'm looking at reviews for a new car, and I'm reading about, the 2021 Chevy Equinox, and then I'm looking at car websites, and I'm searching other things, about those vehicles. I'm going to get dumped into a bucket as somebody that is likely looking for and interested in a new vehicle. So all of those behaviors are kind of being logged about each of us. And then what digital allows us to do, and that kind of starts into the middle portion of this bucket here, I'm starting to build interest. I'm starting to do my research. And that's where we have the ability to start putting ads in front of those people. Your online ability or your online behavior has put you into that bucket. I want to make sure I start putting my brand in front of that bucket of people that are looking for that new vehicle, for instance. And then the conversion piece. That's really where, it comes down to somebody is doing that search. They're looking to make that decision here and now. They're trying to figure out where they can buy it, how they can buy it, what they need to do, and making sure that my brand is present there. So digital allows us really to hit each of those buckets, unlike more traditional forms allow us to.
So Brian, if I may interject, as you're discussing this point, one question that comes to me is, this is just a vast space, and as you mentioned, the data pieces, how, does an agency like yours know what data to pull and where to access it from, essentially? And I know that varies by business, but if you could give some examples or just elaborate a bit on that, that would be awesome.
Sure. Yep. So ours is kind of twofold. We're a little bit unique there, where we get ours from first-party data, but also third-party data. So first-party data, because again, I talked about our websites, our radio stations, 300 plus radio stations, 67 markets, plus other entities that Townsquare owns that are on online entities. We are data collectors ourselves. We have people that sign up for contests, go to our website pages. We have millions of people, even just using Rochester as the example, we have millions of people, millions of page views on a monthly basis. We're able to gather data from those folks, and that gets put into those pools. We know that certain listeners of stations, we're able to look at their propensity to buy certain products or services. So we're doing that internally with first-party data, but then we also have third-party data that we utilize. So Bill Wilson, who's the CEO of Townsquare Media, he was on the forefront of digital targeting when he worked at AOL. And then when they got bought out, he decided to take all his relationships and everything that he had, his experience doing, and start creating Townsquare, and from a digital and traditional media with the radio piece. So we have relationships with a ton of DSPs, digital service providers, but basically allows us access to inventory, online inventory. to access, companies like Oracle, for instance, big data company out in California, and many others that are collecting data, Facebook, Google, and we utilize those relationships and the access to their data to really target the right individual. Does that kind of help answer your question, Chan?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good start. Thank you.
Perfect. Feel free to jump in with more. Just again, quick crash course. What is digital marketing? So basically, it's the practice of delivering ads through various online channels and digital channels. There's a ton of those different channels, which I'll get into at a later slide of some examples and things like that. But I think digital knowledge is kind of it varies extremely. Where somebody's saying, well, my knowledge is Facebook, which is pretty common. A lot of us are users of Facebook, so that's kind of where our digital knowledge begins. That and Google, just because we're all doing searches. But there's a ton of either other social medias, apps, websites, streaming TV platforms. There's a very diverse way of getting those messages out to a targeted audience. And where digital marketing is unique is their real-time ads that are served to the target audience on the personal device that they use. Difference there between, say, TV. If you're going to buy local TV and you have spots that are going to air in the 5 p.m. news this evening, they're going to run whether somebody's watching or not, whether they're your demographic or not. There's definitely value to it. I'm not saying there isn't. I've run a ton of TV campaigns in my previous life, but digital allows you to take it a step further and really be more targeted with that piece, which I can kind of get into. Some of the benefits of digital marketing. I'll get to the programmatic piece here in a moment, but some of the benefits to it. It's cost effective. I know when Chan asked us to be a part of this, wanted it to have a small business focus. I would argue from a digital standpoint, it could be small or large business. So it's cost effective no matter what size. But if you're a smaller business, you're operating with a smaller budget, it's harder to be diverse with your marketing activities, just because more traditional marketing, TV, radio, print, has a higher entry level into that marketing medium, and that's really, there's a higher entry point, but it's a higher entry point to get a quality schedule. Sure, you can buy a handful of TV ads, but a handful of TV ads really aren't going to have a huge impact on your business. But this has a lower barrier to entry than traditional. It's data driven, like I talked about just a little bit ago. Gathering that data on these consumers and use that to target your ideal customer. So if you know either specific demos, hey, you're a women's clothing store, I need to reach any woman who's 25 to 54 within 10 miles of my place. That's super easy to do with a lot of different digital marketing tactics to reach those. I'll give some examples of that in a moment here, but again, targeted. It's not a pray and spray, spray and pray approach, where traditional TV, for instance, or even print, you got to rely on, well, I'm pretty sure this is the demo that watches that station, or even that programming that time of day. I'm going to put my ad within there. It's somewhat reliable, but digital, if you say, I really need to only reach women 25, 54, great. Digital can deliver that piece. Other value that I think I kind of alluded to before, real-time placements. So the ads are only going to show when a user is on their device, when they're using their device, whether it's their phone, desktop, laptop, TV connected to their wall, and you want to serve TV ads to that person through their streaming service. They're only going to run when the user is actually engaged and using their device. It's measurable. Each tactic and campaign is going to be a little bit different as far as what kind of metrics can be reported from it. But the nice part is that from digital campaigns, It allows for reporting metrics to determine engagement, web traffic. You can test different creatives and see what kind of clicks you're getting from them. There's a lot of different things you can kind of really dive into, and then you can see on the reporting on the back end. All right, what does it look like? What kind of effect are we seeing from the message that we're putting out there and the people that we're targeting? Is it resonating with them? Is it driving people to my website? Flexibility, which is huge. I'd say, probably even more now than ever before. 2020 was a year where you had to have more flexibility than ever before. Digital allows you to do that even pre-pandemic. Digital is something that's nimble. It allows you to make changes very quickly and easily to adapt to either changes in your consumer, market conditions, sales, whatever that may be. It's easy to quickly change. You can quickly change your targeting. If you got a new product that's rolling out, you need to now go from women 25-54 to men 18 to 30. You can easily do that, and then that applies to creative as well. So switching up, whether it be your video creative, your display creative, so your social media ad, whatever it may be, those are usually pretty quickly done, within probably 24, 48 hours, and then back up, where there's a longer lead time in more traditional forms. Going back to the funnel piece, it allows you to reach the consumer at any stage of the buying funnel, whether you're just trying to get general branding out there for the next time that their heater kicks out and they need to call somebody they know of your heating and air company, or you need to reach people that are already starting to do that research. Hey, if somebody's already looking for that new AC, trying to get ahead of the summer right now, and they're doing searches for it, I want to make sure that I'm in front of those people, because one, they have an intent to purchase, but two, they're also in that research phase, and that's where digital can really get them. And that goes to what I'll talk about a little bit later with kind of how people are programmed as far as doing their research. Last benefit, and I'm sure there's others, but last benefit to digital marketing is it improves your conversion rate. So if you think about you're targeting a more specific audience, you're being very thoughtful with your dollars of where it goes, which is something that we all have to do much more now than maybe ever before. Knowing that you're reaching the audience you specifically want to reach or think you need to reach, your conversion rate of traffic coming to your website and then becoming either customers online or customers to your brick and mortar should improve over time. I will say too, to digital marketing, while these things are all really great and it allows us to get very detailed into who we're targeting, how we're targeting, it's not a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet to marketing where you can say, all right, yep, this is great. I can only reach those people. Let's turn it on and they'll flood through my door. Like any marketing, it takes time. It takes time to build you as brand awareness with your company, with those people that are in any part of those buying funnels. It takes time for them to make that decision. You also have to make sure you have a campaign that has enough budget and frequency to reach that person on a regular basis, because each of us need to be poked and prodded consistently during our daily lives to have us ultimately make a decision. And digital is another one of those to help diversify the way you're doing it, because there's so many different ways that you can reach people on their devices each day. What are some of the types of digital marketing? This is just kind of a preliminary list. I know there's others, but didn't want to get too terribly far into the weeds. But search engine optimization, search engine marketing. Some will also refer to as Google Adwords. Those are two of the more important ones, because if you think about people's intent to purchase, I know even if you're not thinking of your own business, put yourself in your own personal shoes. If you are a person who needs to get a new car, new pair of shoes, new heater because yours went out and it's the middle of the winter, first thing you're going to do is you're going to start searching for businesses. You're going to figure out who has the capability of doing it in my area. I'm going to reach out to them. I'm either going to buy something online, or I'm going to reach out for a quote, or whatever it may be. It's different by industry and business, but That's where it's extremely important to have those pieces buttoned up so that people, when they're doing a search. Does it apply to every business? Not necessarily. It depends on kind of the, if you're more of um, an e-commerce type business, then it's not quite the same as somebody who's got a brick and mortar. And there's strategies for each. That's why we create custom plans and talk to each client that we work with so that we can really say, all right, this is probably this is the best approach and place to start with what we're trying to do here. Social media, I'm sure everybody's familiar with. There's a ton of them, but main ones: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn. We've all seen those different ads, perusing through our timelines and stuff that you either click on, or even if you don't, it's in our brain, it's logging an impression, whether you realize it or not. Just like, display ads, which is my next one down, banner ads, they're all logging impressions into our brain. Same with commercials you hear on the radio or TV. So, which is interesting because a lot of places will try and ask, how did you hear about us? The answers that you get are so incredibly unreliable because we're all getting inundated in different ways from different companies that ultimately their recall of how they got there is really tough. So, and a lot of times inaccurate. So it's good to diversify the way you're reaching people. Display creative, display is also banner ads is another term that people use. So kind of like the images that are on here, where you see banner ads that are embedded within the sites that you're looking at. They're also in apps and games. There's a lot of different places to serve display. You got native, which is another type of display and video portion ad. That's where it's trying to almost disguise itself as not so much of an ad. So there's definitely some advantages to that depending on your industry. Retargeting, I think, is something that we all experience every day. I'm sure everybody that's on here has looked at a pair of shoes, and then that pair of shoes is following you around, whether it's on Facebook or ads, display ads in, when you're checking your weather app or whatever else it may be. That's where, you have the ability to retarget folks who have looked at your product or service on your website, follow them around with ads afterwards. To get into, a little bit of detail on that, the way that companies like us do that is by placing a pixel on the site of the business or the client that we're working with. It allows us basically to read the IP address and serve ads to them after they leave, which is a real important piece. One is to try and drive new and existing consumers to your site, but also as they leave, hey, don't forget about us. Maybe they were doing research, they didn't make a decision, or you just want to stay top of mind that, hey, don't forget, to order from us again, just like you did, a week or two ago. Email, I think we're all familiar with that, but also there's ways to leverage companies like us that have data for us to go out and get, again, those curated audiences. If you say, I'm a women's clothing store, I need to reach 25, 54 women in my area, great. We'll curate an email list, and then we customize the creative with the client to make sure that custom message goes out via email. We see email that's used a lot from as a lower cost replacement to direct mail, which there's definitely value to direct mail. And in fact, I just realized that there was a piece on here that I forgot to add that I'll get to in a second, but so that's another valuable tactic and something that could potentially be a lower cost, more efficient way of doing a similar tactic, along with the direct mail piece that I didn't put on here, but something to either complement or potentially replace that type of campaign is geo-fencing. I'm sure we've probably all heard the term or maybe even participated in it, but that's having the ability to target specific businesses or addresses based on frankly, a lot of different factors, again, using that data that we have access to, or maybe it's a mailing list that you already have. It's a CRM of existing customers. It's a mailing list that you've acquired from somebody else, whatever it may be. We can utilize those addresses both from a geofencing standpoint to serve display ads, streaming pre-roll video. but also over-the-top TV, which I'll talk about here in a second. Some of the other ones that, as this digital space opens up even more, streaming audio, access to Spotify's and Pandora's, podcasts, people's listening and behavior is changing on that piece. So, we're going to see probably a shift over time. It hasn't been shifting like TV. When TV started having more diverse ways of consuming your product versus just watching local broadcast TV, that shift happened very quickly. Radio is not really going that way. Radio is really pretty flat, but there are more ways to engage people to expand the radio program that you may be doing. Streaming TV and video, like I talked about, those are extensions or even sometimes replacements of traditional TV campaigns. Like I talked about, the barrier to entry into, say, local broadcast TV can be pretty costly. And even if you have it at a lower cost, you're probably not getting a lot of spots. Where this is kind of the alternative. Streaming TV, pre-roll video, if you have those assets, those commercials to use, it's very easy to target. They're only running when people watch. In some cases, they can't skip the ad. There's definitely a ton of value to those pieces.
So Brian, there's a couple of questions here in chat. I just want to take a couple of minutes to kind of bring them to your attention. Targeted reach is one thing, but ultimately it comes down to conversion. What kind of tactics do you use in order to kind of stimulate conversion?
Yeah, so some of the main ones obviously are making sure that and I'll get to the website piece here too, but search engine optimization, search engine marketing, those are the two biggest intent drivers. If you think about yourself from a user, but also even the consumers of your business, they're generally, even if they are trying to find you already, if you have enough brand recognition where they're trying to find you, they're still going to search and find you through there and convert to your website and then to a customer. And even if they're not familiar with, they're just doing a general search for somebody and they find you. You think about the intent of somebody who's in that mindset. I'm searching for, new heater because mine just went out. I need to find somebody now. I'm doing that search and my decision is imminent. Not all consumers are going to be in that same mindset. It might be more of a car purchase, which, you might be doing that search and being there for, that kind of bucket, 30, 60, 90 days, depending on how far out you want to purchase. Those are two of the main ones. Social media, depending on industry and targeting, it can be challenging depending on if you're in financial or not, and other real estate and things. But there's some good conversion tactics within social media. Those are some of the main kind of conversion tactics that get used by both us and other digital companies.
Second question, you just mentioned social media. Lindsay here posted the question, how do you see TikTok playing into digital marketing, and how should a business leverage this into the future?
That's a good question. I'm not going to pretend to have a super accurate answer at this point, because it's definitely huge, but it's definitely new to even the digital marketing realm. I know our company is constantly, testing new products and services, and that's the great part about working for Town Square Media is we have a whole team of, basically research and buying teams that do that for us. And then they come back to us with, best practices, things like that. So I don't know what those things will be for TikTok. I think it's obviously it's another social media platform. I know what I'm saying is extremely right? But when it comes to, if you're a business on TikTok, just like what Facebook originally started out as, if you're going to be posting stuff on TikTok, you're going to need to have super engaging content, because if you don't, people aren't going to care and they're not going to follow you, things like that. I know the advertising portion of it is still evolving, and frankly, even for Facebook, that's been around for quite some time, that's constantly evolving as well. So I am curious to see what we'll see from TikTok, you know, in the near future. And obviously, you know, I think some of it will probably play into, you know, politics too, as far as TikTok goes. Meaning, you know, I know that there was a desire for an American company to acquire it, things like that. So it's really kind of muddy waters there that I'm not super familiar with. Snapchat's kind of a little bit further ahead of that, where they have started monetizing and running campaigns, and we're doing that. If I were to make an assumption about TikTok, it's probably, you know, going to skew quite young, just like Snapchat does. Snapchat's like kind of a 13 to 29 to early 30s right now is what we're seeing as the main demo within there. That'll change over time because there's parents like me that'll want to get familiar with it and know what our children are up to, and eventually, you know, just like Facebook, evolve over time. Will there be, you know, more demos in it and stuff? So I suspect we'll see that with Snapchat, TikTok, things like that. Was there another one in there, Chan, or were those the?
No, that was it for now. Just to kind of give you a little rundown on time, we're about at the 8:42, 8:43 mark. So we also want to open it up to more questions at any point in time for the audience.
You got it. They can chime in anytime. I'm just going to wrap up. I got a couple other slides, and then that's about it.
Sounds good.
I just wanted to touch on programmatic digital marketing real quick, because I'm sure it's probably a term you guys have heard. Basically, it's a way that the digital marketing companies like us have been able to automate the buying and selling of online advertising. When digital advertising first came out, websites, you know, say it was your local TV station, local radio station would have a website. You could buy ads directly through them. Your ads would go on that station page, and then that's where your ads lived. And then, you know, it's kind of a little bit of a pray and spray approach. You rely that, you know, it's the same demo. It's you know, watching that TV station is also going to the website, but you ultimately, you know, don't know. Programmatic opened it up where companies like that across the board that have got all these impressions that are going unused on their websites. We're talking big national companies down to, you know, smaller individual websites, are able to basically put their ads out on the market for, you know, larger companies, you know, data service providers to go out and buy it for pennies on the dollar, and then offer it to companies, you know, access to it like we have, where we're now targeting a specific user, again, using women 25-54. I don't want to just put my ad for my women's clothing store on that one website and then cross my fingers that a woman 25-54 goes there at the right time to see my ad. In the programmatic world, what it does is like, all right, we want to reach that user. Okay, so all this bucket of users is women 25-54 within 10 miles of my business. I want my ad to show up wherever they are going on the internet. Each person is going to be drastically different of apps they're using, games they're using, websites they're visiting, whatever it is. I want to make sure that my ad shows up in whatever environment they're in. So that's just a really quick kind of crash course in definition. It's also allowed for, you know, when programmatic kind of first started, or even digital advertising started, there was a high barrier to entry. There was a really large minimums to meet. That's been pretty much erased now, just because digital has evolved, where I can go into, or Nicole or Ben, or I can go into a business, and even if you're a small business and you have a smaller budget, you can partake in programmatic advertising the same way that a company that's got, you know, a 6-figure marketing budget can participate in the same, you know, targeting the same group of folks. I just threw some examples of digital ads. I know people have seen them. Obviously, it's much easier for me to screenshot display ads, which we're all, you know, more familiar with, and no judging. These are screenshots from my own, but just to give you an example of where I'm meeting various buckets or criteria for different businesses, and then they're serving me things. So, you know, this was last year, of course, when we could still go to events and games, but you know, before the Wisconsin game, you know, I'm somebody that goes to football games. I went to the U of M, and they started targeting me with ads because they know that's the kind of person that we want to reach to buy tickets for this game. Same goes with, I was on a sports betting website. Again, hopefully no judgments, but um, I was looking at the lines for college football, and at the time, we were looking to take a vacation back when that was a little bit more of a reality. I was being served ads for a hotel and resort in Las Vegas, but at the same time, we were also looking for a larger vehicle because we're adding a third child to our family. So I was in a couple different buckets because of my online activity and what I was doing, and then it's serving relevant ads to me in my life. And that was obviously, that's just kind of the tip of it where you would see these types of things. But some other screenshots, this one is more within a mobile space. This was during the state fair, again, 2019 when these things were happening. Got served an ad for Avis because we're looking to do some traveling. So I was in that bucket of somebody who is looking to travel somewhere. So they want to make sure, hey, if you're traveling, consider us as a place to rent a car. And in this case, they're putting an offer on there. They're really trying to kind of double down on the creative and make sure that I said, well, shoot, maybe I should consider them because I can get 30% off. And again, just some others that were relevant. Here's one within my weather app because we have a dog. So you'll see those and probably more cognizant of them. Same goes with video ads. Obviously, it's hard for me to really embed that into this type of presentation, but think about the ones that you see if you use a streaming TV service, or even you're on YouTube, or you're watching a local weather report on their website and you get an ad before. Those are all targeted for very specific reasons generally. And then the last thing I just wanted to kind of touch on is your online presence as a whole. So, one thing that we didn't really talk about was your website, and this kind of goes back to the conversion question. So, in order to really, have a good conversion rate, is really to make sure your online presence is buttoned up. And you think about how consumer behavior has changed, and this isn't pandemic related. This has been happening for years. As each of us are looking for what we need, we're going to search online. We're going to research the businesses that can help us with what we need, with product or service, whatever it is. We're going to land on their website to learn more about that business, and that's crucial. I'll touch on here in a second. We ultimately are going to hopefully either buy online or make that decision prior to going into the store. There's not a lot of browsing that's going on these days. And I'll use my experience at the ad agency I worked at. We specialized in automotive marketing, and people there, because information is so readily available, people are coming in with the decision to purchase. I saw this car in your lot. I want to test drive it, and I want to leave with it today. I've already done my research. You don't need to sell me on it. It's very similar with the other products and services that we're purchasing on a daily basis. Thing to keep in mind is, so with all these digital tactics that we have available to us that I've touched on, those are all driving people to your website. It's one of the two windows to your business. Your two windows of your business are your brick and mortar, if you have one, and your website. And I would argue at this point, there's more people that are going to check you out from a website standpoint than just walk into your store and browse. Again, it's just the consumer mindset has changed the way our purchase process. So your people are absolutely going to judge your business based on your website you have online. So making sure that it's user friendly, making sure that all the information that you have as a business, either products you sell, services you do, make sure it's on there, make sure it's detailed. I encourage you to really approach it from a user standpoint. If you are a user and you needed to go to, your business's site, what do you need to find? What information do you need them to know so they can ultimately make an informed decision and either purchase your product or come into your store? Just a quick stat on there. It varies greatly depending on industry, but in general, up to 50% of people will leave a website and never return based on their user experience. And I'm sure whether or not we've all logged it in our mind, it's all happened to us before. I know it absolutely happens to me. I'm looking for, a product or service, and like I can't find what I need here. All right, forget it. I'm going somewhere else. Because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of places that do what each business does. So that's where it's really important. And then the last piece, when people search, do they find you? When we're talking about content on your website, relevant information, that is also not just for consumers and their ease of knowing what you're all about and what you do, but that's also for Google. You need Google to know what you're all about, what you offer, so that when people are locally are searching for what you offer, that Google is saying, yes, person that just did that search, this is one of the right businesses for you. Digital campaigns are key in that sense, because having more having digital campaigns drive people to your website, Google's algorithm is going to recognize that, hey, there's people within the Rochester area that want to find, that are looking for and going to that women's clothing store website. That must be important to the people that are here. We're going to push them further up the search results. So having a company that's working on your SEO, your search engine optimization, which is optimizing your website for Google, having an SEM campaign, so that you're being found in a couple different ways on those searches, but then also those other activities where display ads are clicking to your site, potentially pre-roll ads, and so on and so forth. So I've done a ton of talking. I don't know if there's any questions that have popped in. So like I said, it's a topic that's very easy to get into the weeds on. So I try not to get too far into the weeds on this one, but.
Great. Well, thank you, Brian.
Hey,
let's
Brian.
open it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Nicole. Yeah, open it up for questions.
Yeah, thank you. Brian, thanks for sharing that great information. I think from a business development perspective, what does it look like in terms of using digital targeting for the purpose of recruitment? I think, especially with 2020 and perhaps changes with staffing and I myself being in the recruitment space, it's a little bit of an ongoing for businesses. And how can we help businesses with those efforts?
Yeah, we're actually talking to a lot of businesses right now that are in that position of needing help finding staff for various reasons. It's really going to be different by business and who you're trying to target, the type of position you're trying to fill. But ultimately, digital marketing allows you the ability to customize, who you need to reach, and then putting ads in front of them. So if you're somebody who needs maybe more of an entry level position, there's ways to target there, both from a search criteria, but also putting display ads or other types of ads in front of that same person, because we know, hey, they might be looking for a job based on their online behavior, things they're searching, websites they're looking at, whatever it may be. And if there's more, specialized positions that are needed, that's where there's different tactics that you can use there. For instance, if you need a very specific, level person, I'll say we've done some in the medical field where they need nurses that already have schooling and certifications and things like that. And you could target other businesses that have those positions. Because in some cases, you might have to lure someone away from their current job. So we have a lot of different ways that we can approach that, depending on the specific needs or positions to fill or number of positions. And that's where we work with the client to customize whatever it is that they may need.
Other questions, you're certainly welcome to post in chat or just ask them directly. As a small business, you talk about all the different digital tactics, whether it's SEO, SEM, or whatnot. Limited budget, small business looking to grow. How many different digital tactics on average do you recommend to your clients? And what do you advise as the average length for a campaign?
So as far as number of tactics, it's going to vary greatly depending on what your monthly or annual budget is. And that's where we try and have that conversation, because if we have an idea of what it is, because it could vary. It could be $500 a month, it could be 5,000, it could be 50,000, depending on the size of the business. What budget is available is going to vary drastically on what we might recommend. You know, if we're saying, okay, if your budget is $1,000, all right, let's put a little in this bucket, a little in this bucket, and start there and work with you to grow, and then hopefully be able to grow that budget and diversify over time. Versus if you're a larger business that has more budget, then we're going to add more tactics because the means are there to do it basically. I'm sorry, the second piece to your question, Chan, was the length, right?
Length of a
campaign. Yeah, so length, and I think I mentioned this earlier too. Even with digital marketing, it's not a silver bullet, right? So you can't just turn it on and people are gonna flood in, which is something I think maybe is an expectation that people see when they start digital campaigns. It's like anything else; it's going to take time to build that message up with the group that you're targeting, unless it's a very specific, quick call to action or a sale or things like that. And it depends too on what your product or service is. If you're insurance and you're putting ads in front of people and you're trying to get them to switch insurance carriers, that's not going to be a quick decision just based on the nature of how people make that decision. Versus a product that somebody could see an ad, click on it, and buy it immediately. You could have quicker results than other types of businesses. So going back to your question, I personally, when I put plans together, I put annual plans together. I believe that digital, no matter what size your business, should be part of your marketing mix because of all the different advantages that I touched on in earlier slides. So I believe if you have that capability, it should be part of your annual plan in some form or fashion, no matter what size budget it is, and you should be consistent with it. The clients that I've had, both at Town Square, the clients that I've had at the advertising agency I worked at, the ones that saw the most success were the ones that were consistent about what they did, gave it a chance to work, didn't make a lot of wholesale changes, because that's the other part. If you make a bunch of changes within a short period of time, if something starts working, you don't know what. And then you're left with, my marketing plan is working. I'm not sure which part. Maybe it's the whole thing. Maybe it's just part of it, but we don't know because now a bunch of changes have been made. So that's where I encourage consistency to a plan. Put something in place, run it, see what happens, see what you can learn. Digital campaigns are going to optimize over time too, because they're going to find the users that are more engaged with your brand. That, and as people, let's using the clothing store thing again, or a car maybe is more relevant. People that are searching for a car now are not going to be the same people that are searching for a car 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9, whatever it may be. And that's another advantage digital marketing has, is if you're running an annual campaign and you want to reach anybody who's in market for a Chevy vehicle because you're a Chevy dealer, you're going to hit anybody who's in market all along the way. Your audience is going to be constantly changing, and your ad is going to be in front of those people because we have the data on those folks. So your ad's always going to be in front of the relevant people throughout the year, versus maybe having to change your TV station or programming with your TV station to meet some of those needs. So I would say, if it's a recruitment campaign, minimum 3 months. I encourage more, depending on the number of positions you have to fill. The more positions, then maybe it's an ongoing effort that you should be doing. For sure, 6 months should be standard. But like I said, I always encourage annual plans, just because those are the ones that I've seen work.
So, Brian, this question is from Allison, and I quote, what type of marketing strategies do you recommend for a business that not everyone needs? For example, Allison works at a transportation company and not everyone needs freight shipped across the country.
It's a good question. I think that's where, a branding campaign of sorts is going to be key for that type of business, because you don't know when people are going to be in the market for it. Depending on who that customer is, and that's where we would get more into the weeds and granular with the conversations with the client. With Allison, for instance, we would ask questions like, who do you do business with now, so that hopefully we can either maybe even target those particular businesses or clients that you have, or find clients like that and figure out how to, different ways to target those. So without knowing a little bit more kind of in the weeds details, it's hard to say exactly how, but again, that's one where having a consistent message. So if a business is looking for, hey, we need something shipped, oh yeah, I remember that place does it. But then also making sure you're there from a search standpoint, that you're there from an SEM standpoint. The ads up at the top of a Google search or even down below with your organic search is going to be extremely valuable when somebody finally gets that point. Hey, I need somebody, and they find you and reach out to you through that.
Well, I think we're nearing close to 9 o'clock. So I know every folks have to run to their next meetings and get on with the day. So I'd like to just take a couple moments to thank Brian, Ben and Nicole, the team from Town Square, and to all our participants this morning for joining us on the first 2021 Social Media Breakfast.